A point man and a pace man work as a team.
6, 7, 2, 8.
And the pace man is right behind the point man.
6, 11.
To keep up with the pace of the direction or the distance that you've traveled. So I know that 126 of my steps equal 1 click. I would put 5 stones in one pocket, and every time I walked, I thought 126 of my steps. I would take that stone out of that one pocket and put it in the other pocket. And the reason you use stones is because you can imagine if something were to happen, it's very easy to forget where you're at. I mean, I don't go out and I don't tell war stories, and I never have, and there's a lot of different reasons for that. Of course, one of them is, I think, is I never want people to get the wrong impression of war itself.
So on this Monday morning in Vietnam, at my direction, after complete and thorough consultation and agreement with the government of South Vietnam.
I never read the paper. I didn't watch the news. I really didn't care about it. I didn't know what was going on. I guess I knew there was a war going on, but we always kind of put it in the back of our mind, you know.
United States aircraft have resumed action in North Vietnam.
Went out there to get the mail from the weekend, and right there on the front was my draft notice. And I recognized it, I opened it up, and sure enough, I'd been drafted. I just took it and put it back in the envelope, stuck it back in the mailbox, and went in and went to bed.
South Vietnamese troops pour into the swampy jungles of the Mekong Delta. The important
But I was in about 6 weeks, and I got a call from my wife, and she was pregnant. They came down and said, pack your bags, you're leaving, so.
Meanwhile, U.S. troop strength in the South Vietnam War is reported at an all-time high of 404,000 men.
At that time is when I met Ted McCaskill. And I don't know when that nickname of Tex got stuck on him, but it was real quick. Kind of the consummate cowboy, I guess you could say. And they dropped us off with our new company, and our company commander came over. He stuck us both with the 3rd squad in that platoon. So we were together. You just went out on what they call search and destroy missions, and you'd go on different sized ones. It was usually in 3 columns, with the center column taking the lead and 2 columns, one on the right flank and one on the left flank. And you'd go out and we would just bust through the jungle or wherever we were at looking for the enemy. You were trying to survive 2 things at one time. You were trying to survive the environment, and you were trying to survive the enemy. And you kind of wondered from day to day which was the worst. But you survive that environment because you got a buddy with you. And you and your buddy, you'll watch after each other. I mean, if you run out of water for some reason, you know, he shares his water. Need a helping hand, he's there to help you. I mean, you're out there bending over with your pants down and your buddy's checking you out to make sure you don't have any leeches crawling up your butt. And you become really dependent upon each other. And then you start getting to the point where you share things with each other. You start talking about your families and your wives, you know, you count on them. I mean, when you're out there and you're asleep, hopefully that guy's sitting there over you or laying next to you and he's taking care of you and he's watching. And you have to learn how to depend on him. By June of '68, after the Tet Offensive was in January, by June, now we were pretty well getting to be a little more salty, I guess you say. We kind of knew what we were doing. Things were not going well in the war.
We have learned at a terrible and a brutal cost that retreat does not bring safety, and weakness does not bring peace.
I remember real well starting to run into areas that had all the telltale signs that you don't want to see. We weren't gone very long at all that day, and we ran into a base camp where it looked like they had just left. Walking through really carefully, and you're taking every precaution. One of the sergeants started kind of souvenir shopping in this base camp, kind of keeping watch, and I was kind of worried that he was spending too much time just looking around for things. I just remember having that thought, but the next thing I knew, things broke out. We started catching fire from our left flank up to the front. It's hard to have a strategy. It's just who can lay down the most fire the quickest, it seems like sometimes. Things were just went from good to bad real quick. We got out of, finally it just dies down. Everything just stops all of a sudden, and you're at the job of just getting your wounded medevaced and getting whoever was killed airlifted out. Life goes on, so we reorganized. I was sick, and I had been sick for a couple of weeks, and I had lost a lot of weight and had no appetite. So it was my turn to pull point, and as you can imagine, it was not a good day to be pulling point. And I remember texts coming to me and saying, "You're not going to pull point. You're just too sick. You're not going to do it today. I'm going to do it." And he was insistent upon it. And I said, "Well, I can do it. I know I can." And he says, "Look at you." And he just says, "You're just about to go down right now." So he insisted, and he pulled point, and I was his pace man. In hyper alert, all your senses are looking at everything you can look at, and we're being as careful as we can be. As soon as he opened up on us, I saw Tex go down, and I knew he was hit by the way he fell, because he fell on his back. And all you can do at the time is you just return fire. I would lay down fire, and it seemed like every time I would change magazines, then I would start getting a lot of fire back from this bunker. A RPG came a little further back, more to my 3 o'clock position, came right over my left side, kind of high, and hit some trees behind me and went off. And it was just a tremendous blast. As fast as things start, things just stop. And I do remember I took out a smoke grenade, and I threw a smoke grenade out towards these bunkers and to try to give me some cover. And I crawled up to Tex to try to give him aid. Trying to see where he was shot, I could tell he was shot right in the chest. I could tell real quick he was going into shock and turning color. It seemed like a long time. I finally got some other help up there, and we were able to get Tex back. The gentleman behind me had been, at the time I could tell then, had been shot in the mouth and it had come out the back of his head. So he had died instantly. We got everybody medevaced out and got back, and I got Tex. He was still alive when he went onto the helicopter and he medevaced out. The next morning, I do remember Captain George coming and telling me that Tex had died on the way to the hospital. You know, I've thought about that day a whole lot. When you understand you had somebody take your place and was caring for you and watching after you, and in the whole process of doing that, they died. I kind of had a burden, and I think my burden was always is to maybe to not disappoint and try to live and appreciate what we had.
Thousands of demonstrators opposed to the Vietnam War assembled in the nation's capital for a mass protest.
I came home from Vietnam, and we didn't get necessarily a good reception. The anti-war movement was going. The best thing to do was just not talk about it and just do your job. But I started going to work every day, and I would notice people complaining about it. And I'm thinking to myself, how could you complain about this? How could you be unhappy when you're going to go home every day to your wife and family? You're going to have 2 arms and 2 legs, and everything's going to be fine. And I've always felt like I kind of lost the right to complain. I know we hear a lot, and we've grown up with a vision of a hero. You know, there's 2 types. There's the kind that does it in the adrenaline rush, and there's the kind that think about it and contemplate it and know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly the danger and the risk that they're putting themselves out there in. Every day, there are people having to suck it up and go out there and put themselves on the line. I don't think we always understand exactly what they're doing and give them credit enough. Tex knew exactly what he was getting into and where he was putting himself. I went back on June 19th to visit Tex at his gravesite. Think about him a lot, as you can imagine, but I'd never been back to his grave. And when I walked up to it, the first thing I saw was a plaque that had been put up, and the inscription on it was just nearly more than I could take. It was, it said, Tex had died so others may live. Now, I don't know how anybody ever knew that, but I've always felt that he did die so others could live. And I'm the other, and I carry that burden. I wouldn't wish the experience of war on anyone, but at the same time, I wouldn't take for it. I am Bobby Shelton, and I am an American patriot.